All right, should we go to my buddy Al in Bloomfield?
Sure, let's talk to Al.
Quick editor's note before we jump to this this interview with Al. I had been talking on the show about the Wanda Sykes stuff that we'd played, where she talked about how the elite coast, shouldn't have to listen to the middle of America, and the middle of America was stupid and all that stuff. So he mentioned Wanda a couple times. That's what he's talking about. Enjoy. Let's see. Al in Bloomfield, good day.
Oh, yes, good day. I was really disappointed in Wanda Sykes because she missed the whole point. She forget about people like me who grew up during a segregationist period, who went to segregation schools and all that, and she can't see the achievement America's made. I'm 70 years old, so she can't see the achievement America made during that time when I was growing up. I had to go to a segregationist school where the segregationist policy existed. She can't see that, and she can't see the amazing thing, because she was arguing. She was talking about supporting president. Now,
right.
What you can't understand is that Brown versus education was the president at the time.
Yeah.
Because it was reversed. I was able to go to an integrated school. She can't see that. And then she talked about in effect referring to Walmart shoppers. Black folks shop at Walmarts too. I hate to tell her that, but we do too.
Well, right, because Al, it's a class thing. She's an elitist, so she would never shop at Walmart. In her set, they drive really nice cars and they go to exclusive places. But the rest of the country, black, white, Hispanic, and everything else, the rest of us are just trying to survive.
Yeah, it makes no difference. And what she don't see is that when she insults mid-America, she insults Black America at the same time. It's like these attorney financial pimps who only show up when there's a death, and they never stay later to fix the problem, like the attorney you was talking about.
Ben Crump.
Yeah, but that's all I have to say.
Well, you're right about that. Hey, Al, let me ask you a question. So, do you remember being a kid when there was segregation? Clearly?
I'll tell you what. I was born in 1952, so obviously, I grew up in school systems from elementary school to high school. It was all segregated.
And that includes bathrooms and water fountains. That includes everywhere. And you couldn't go into, I assume, you couldn't just walk into the Woolworths.
Well, I'll put it like this, though. That was a store that's equivalent to Macy's that was in my hometown. That was a water fountain for the white folks. That was a pyramid water fountain. Then off the back of that was a little white bowl that say color.
So the little white bowl was the spill off from the good fountain, and that was for you to drink out of?
And that was for color. They didn't call us black then; they called us colors, and that was it.
God,
people don't recognize. People don't appreciate America because America is constantly evolving. It's changing every day, and if you don't see that, then you don't respect the value of America.
Al, did you feel like when you were just as a kid, just as a young man, did you feel disdain from your fellow citizens, from white citizens? Did you feel that they scoffed at you, and did you feel hate, or was this just the system that was the system?
It was just a system because you knew inherently that there were certain places you can't go. There were certain people you couldn't talk to, and there were certain girls you couldn't date. It was just there, and you knew it because you grew up in that system. And there wasn't fear or anything else, but it was just a system that existed, and that's why I despise these young folks today use the word systemic racism. That was systemic racism, not what we see today.
Oh, Al, you have young girls right now, black, white, whatever, who are angry that their mommy got them the older model of Range Rover, and they consider themselves victims of racism now. They're stealing your experience, Al, and making it their own.
Well, they talking about Range Rovers. We were lucky to have shoes. so I just look at them and I say, you don't know what great society you're growing up in today. And they don't respect it. They don't like it. They want to destroy it. And I find that repugnant. Because this is a great country. It's constantly changing, and life has gotten so much better.
Yes, absolutely. But so Al, then did you go to church growing up?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I grew up in the Deep South, so, we all went to church you didn't even have to ask what you did on Sundays. You already knew.
So was the immorality of racism discussed openly in church, or was that forbidden?
Oh, yeah. It was discussed in church, and, it was discussed so much until the mayor, who was white, he came there to speak about that, to talk about the changes that was being made, the desegregation of the schools that was being made. It wasn't, I grew up in a town that people respected each other. Black and white, they respected each other. And a lot of them was for change. And they wasn't these liberal white folks we see today. They crazy. Like on the Sykes. I mean, it was different. And I love the age I grew up in because I can sit here today at 70 years old and can tell people about the changes that I saw personally in my life. I remember Martin Luther King marching through Montgomery. I'm from Birmingham. And guess what? He had to pass through my hometown to get to Montgomery, but he didn't stop because I guess he considered the black people their reactionaries and we wasn't going to do nothing. But when you live through those changes, anybody, white, black, or any color who's 70 years old or over 70, they can talk personally about how that age affected them. And I hate to hear when I hear some of these black people talking about how black people are disadvantaged today and all that. I grew up in a family of 7 kids, and we actually had 2 parents. And out of the 7, they sent 6 of us to college. So don't tell me you disadvantaged today when my parents back then could do that.
How'd they do it, Al? Did you guys work, or did they save, or did they?
My father owned his own business. He owned a painting business and a construction business. The man was phenomenal. He fed his family and took care. And my mother valued 2 things more than anything else: spiritual beliefs and education. And she drilled that into us to say that there's nothing to stop you but you. She always said that was her favorite phrase. There's nothing to stop you but you.
Isn't that such a wonderful and important thing? If you have, in Barack Obama wrote about it in his book, The Audacity of Hope. Barack Obama had the audacity to believe that he could be whatever he wanted to be, which is wonderful.
I'll tell you where I grew up at, it wasn't hope. You had to take your future in your hands and your mother and father. Because when I applied to college, nobody told me to apply to college. It was expected of me to do it, to order that college catalog, to fill out that application, to take the SAT and the ACT. It was just expected of me to do it. And when I was growing up, my parents never asked me, or any of my sisters and brothers, did you do your homework? It was just expected of you to do it. That was it.
Wow. We need those values back. Al, my fear is that too many families believe that they've been wronged, that they've been given a bad hand in life, and that the government at some point will come to pull them out of the ditch that they're in. And regardless of race, I just think that having that in mind, that your destiny is not in your own hands, is the recipe for an empty life.
Well, growing up in Alabama, you didn't expect anything from the government. You never asked for anything from the government because my parents felt that was disrespectful for you to put your family in that position. You were responsible for yourself, not the government. And now people want people to give them something. And I'm looking at them like, get off your butt and work.
Well, I also assume, Al, that in 1959, if the government came calling to your house, it may not have been good news.
It was never good news. And one thing that my parents, that in the city I grew up in, it was humiliating and embarrassing and demeaning for you to accept. They didn't have food stamps back then, but they have, I think they called it relief. And they would give people relief. And those families was not respected very well in that community. Because if you so lazy, you got to accept relief, then you had a problem. And it was just sad. It's sad to see how things are today where everybody wants the government to give them something. Free stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, Al, were those values that your family had, did your neighbors have the same values? Or were you?
Absolutely. Like, all my neighbors have bought their own houses. We own our own houses. And it's amazing that back in the 40s and 50s, my parents bought their house.
Yeah.
My grandmother, who was a single woman, back in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, bought her own house as a single woman because she worked a full-time job in the cotton mills. Then after that, she owned an acre of land. She used to grow vegetables and sell those and get us out there helping her pick them and do all that stuff. But they were self-sufficient people is what I'm getting at. All these people were self-sufficient.
But that's remarkable. Al, your grandmother was probably maybe 2 generations away from slavery. Maybe.
Well, she was 3.
3. So
she was 3 generations.
So where does these values come? You're ripped out, or somewhere along the line, you get ripped or sold out of Africa, thrown into the United States of America as chattel slaves, as property for labor.
Well, that came from my great-great-grandfather. What he did, he was a slave, and my grandmother used to tell the story all the time. He ran into the swamps of Alabama, got some land, and started building on that land and growing stuff on that land. Then he started selling the stuff he was growing. That's the independence of generation after generation after generation. But now we have generations that 3 generations on welfare, which makes no sense. To me, that's demeaning, and it's disrespectful to African Americans for these liberal politicians to say that's okay. It's disrespectful.
Also, Al, I don't hear this story enough. You're telling the story of your great-great-grandfather, and it seems to me that he absolutely he embodied the American spirit when we talk about individualism, responsibility.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. America's a great country because my grandfather, Will Woodall, can go from being a slave to owning land. Generation later, his granddaughter could buy a house on a single woman could buy a house on her own, which was unheard of. Because what bank gonna lend money to a single woman back then, black or white? And then she could produce kids. Then they could produce kids that they sent all their kids to college. So don't make excuses today as far as I'm concerned. Don't say because I'm black I'm disadvantaged and all that mess. No, you're mentally disadvantaged. That's what it is.
Al, what do you do? Are you retired now?
Well, I'm retired now. I'm old enough to retire.
70's not old anymore, Al. What did you do?
Well, I worked labor relations with Pratt & Whitney for a number of years. For most of my career, I worked for them in labor relations. After I left them, I went to work for another insurance. I worked for an insurance company, and I did what's called specialty claims with them. Then I went into another company, and I went to another company, and what I did was I lobbied for them at the State House for a while, and then I retired. I got tired of it. Actually, it's time for me to get out of here.
Al, we need you back in the workforce or in academia, for God's sakes, please. Please.
Well, you know, that's funny. I was thinking about it. After I retired, I started getting bored because, you travel a little, then you do this a little. Then you wake up one morning, you do the same routine for 40, 50 years. You take a shower, get dressed, and then you say, where do I go from here? So I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, you got it. It's very tough to retire. My dad did the same thing. As soon as he retired, he joined the loon committee, to go count the loons in ponds, and did 1,000 different things and made new friends from all different political spectrums, this, that, etc. But Al, you have got a story to tell, and it has been an absolute honor talking to you. Actually,
your father and I are not that much different. I got so bored. I volunteer for food shifts. And I wish everybody would volunteer for that thing, because I've met people from all over who volunteer with me, and we're all retired, but But
it's wonderful. The people that you meet when you go out and do things for people, it's all sorts of people from all political spectrums come together, and it's really that's what life is about. It's about helping each other. It's not about labels and this party or that party or whatever. God, we're here for a finite amount of time here. We can be decent to each other as we're taking this journey. Al, I would love for you to be a regular caller. I think I've loved this conversation.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your show because it's a great show, and it points out the difference between people like Wanda Sykes, who don't respect this country, who want to destroy it, and people who want to build it.
Here, here. Al, thank you so much. You take care, my friend.
Take care.
You too. That is Al from Bloomfield. Man, what a story. What a life. What an American. What an American story. That guy right there. That is the American story that should be told again and again and again.